Well, in our studies, we measured a huge number of biological variables. The blood pressure went up and the heart rate went up, increase in pupil diameter, body temperature, all kinds of hormones. Beta endorphin, prolactin, growth hormone, ACTH, cortisol, also a compound called oxytocin. So there was a huge response within the body to a big dose of DMT. I think even more important, than the biological mechanisms of action, which I think is a lot of what's going on with the current research with these drugs now, is, what's the content of the psychedelic experience as opposed to what's the mechanism of action, by which they're taking place. So, that's where it, kind of returns to the nature of the full, psychedelic experience that, so far people are kind of sidestepping, for the sake of, political expediency right now.
Well, talk to us about it then. Let's not do that. What about the content? The content of the psychedelic experience is so controversial that we don't want to talk about. Is it like seeing God or something?
Well, it's clearly isn't, Kansas. Well, I think as people were describing in the film, you enter this incorporeal world of light where you encounter these overwhelmingly powerful interacting beings, and they're imparting information, you're imparting things to them. It's this interactive, dynamic give and take. It isn't unitive. It's not, like emerging into the white light, although a very small number of our volunteers had that kind of experience. But by and large, it's very interactive. It's quite dynamic. It's quite colorful. It's quite full of intelligent, discrete entities, which are expecting us, interacting with us, overwhelmingly, powerful too. So, that's not going to be on the front page of the New York Times, as opposed to, psilocybin helps increase, the acceptance of death in cancer patients. Although that's an important first step. I think at some point, though, we're going to have to, face up, to the fact that you can inject somebody with this drug, and in a couple of heartbeats, they're someplace completely else.
Well, okay, yeah. Okay.
Just following off on what you just said, the interactions that you report that was quite a common theme with aliens or with different entities. What kind of interactions were they? Were they conversations? Was there anything that was said back and forth? Can you tell a bit more about that?
Well, all kinds of interactions. Telepathic communication, exchange of emotions, operations. The placement of things in the body, predictions of the future, things like that.
About your aura photography, how about when you're in your process of either any kind of chemical that you have, that you can take before and after pictures of your aura photography and see how your colors look and see if you get a more enlightened spirit of colors? Is that an option?
Yeah, but at the time we weren't, doing that. But that's a reasonable experiment, I think. Well, you could, look at that kind of photography and compare before and after for sure.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on salvia divinorum compared to DMT?
It's comparably strange and comparably quick. The time course is quite similar, and you enter into some completely different world, which is a little more similar to this one, it seems like, but it's inhabited as well. I think if you consider the brain and consciousness as as a radio or as a television set, it isn't inconceivable, to think about different channels that you can kind of tune into with a recalibrating of the chemistry of the brain, which will then alter, the receiving characteristics of consciousness as a result. I'm keen on hearing your reactions to the movie too, so,
I just had a question this whole time. You talk all about how all these experiences you've heard about, have you yourself ever had one? Because, I mean, it seems like you would benefit the most from this research because you've done so much research on it.
Well, that's just a question I'm asked, quite a bit. And I suppose what I tell people is if I, talking about, if I tell people that I've used DMT, then I'll be accused of being a zealot. And if I tell people I've not smoked DMT, then I'll be accused of, not knowing what I'm talking about. So I just kind of sidestep the issue generally.
Alex said earlier that there was a quote, something along the lines of, what we create as reality is in our own minds, to most extent.
Well, a neuroscientist that said everything that we experience is a figment of our imagination. But that doesn't answer the question of what the imagination is,
Okay.
or what consciousness is.
Considering that, when you're doing your studies with your subjects, as you watch them one at a time, did you ever consider that your consciousness could have been infecting their experiments? And did you ever use any kind of active or passive placebos while administering DMT, or why or why not?
Well, it was a pretty close space in that room. There was me and my nurse and the volunteer, sometimes the spouse or the partner of the volunteer. And we worked as hard as we could to be really quiet, quite silent, not interfere or contaminate people's experiences. I didn't really give people all that much in terms of coaching about what to expect, other than that it was fast and it'll be over quickly, and you may think you've died, in which case, don't panic. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, they were free to have their own trip. I didn't, put my hands on them, or there was no chanting, or there wasn't any music going on, anything like that. I think it's impossible, not to experience some interaction emotionally and energetically, but we did our best, I think anyway, to keep that to as minimal a kind of level as we could. And we gave a number of doses of DMT, and also we gave inert placebo, just plain salt water.
Rick, there's this whole phenomena of having your eyes open and closed and being in this other realm. What's that?
Yeah, well, it's confusing, isn't it? If you open your eyes and there's all this stuff kind of swirling around you, and at the same time it's overlaid upon the room. You don't really know what to do. And it was a common reaction of our volunteers in the first, couple of moments to open up their eyes. And that was really bad. So we ended up just, putting eye shades on the volunteers, so that when they did open their eyes, they would still be black and they would still be internally, focused, which was really a godsend, actually.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange, though? There's this interdependency, or this digitation of the two levels happening at one time.
I think that's amazing, because it kind of means that we commonly make this division between the outer world and the inner world, and usually that's just sort of the matter of closing the veil of your eyeballs. And when you close the veil of your eyeballs, and it's no different than the world you're generating or appear to be experiencing.
In consciousness, and then you have people on the other hand, like Dr. Ramachandran, who's really digging deep and trying to unite all these different fields, like psychology, psychiatry and neurology. And what do you see as the future of that, and if that will benefit? And for art, I wrote an article about conceptual art, and I was wondering if, just like Dennis Dutton, if conceptual art has jumped the shark, and how, in a sterile environment like most of these art schools now that really push the conceptual art theory, how can the artists encourage each other to kind of dissolve that and break through and kind of make visionary art the future of art and kind of evolve in the art world?
Well, I kind of do. So there's this concept called the explanatory gap, which I think has not been bridged, and I don't know if we're much closer to bridging it. And that's the gap that exists between brain physiology and subjective experience. We still don't really know exactly how the two are correspond to each other. So we could really fine-tune what's happening with the neurotransmitters and the electrical activity and all that, but exactly how that's translated in one person in their mind to the subjective experiences that they're undergoing at that moment, it's still a mysterious thing. So I don't know if we're much closer. I think it may be one of those gaps that we make smaller and smaller and smaller, but we never bridge. I think that's kind of the miraculous element of it.
And as far as I think that's already happening, and the arts are already infested with people having bored through normal reality and found other worlds through a variety of means. And some of them find their ways here to events like this. And artists kind of band together and are, I think, starting something. People get lit up after they have these experiences, and they want to find camaraderie. And we've found all over the world there's a love tribe that's kind of got their ear cocked for this kind of information. This is news for the human family, even though it's old news. It's the oldest world religions, started with psychedelics, and now through the gifts of science and scientific research, serious interest is again making it legally possible to discuss these matters, and perhaps we can not react so negatively, and they will find their place in the sacramental arsenal as well as the medicinal.
I wanted to turn our direction just for a moment to Mitch, who made the film, and I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about when did you start this film, and what made you decide that this would be your subject?
I had my first DMT experience back in 2002, and that was really what changed everything, and that's what made me want to make the film. And it happened almost instantaneously of coming back to this waking reality. And it was also the first substance I'd ever tried that I didn't want to touch again until I researched a lot more, and obviously came across Dr. Strassman's book, excuse me, and knew that was the way to tell the story. I needed to have that kind of scientific backbone, I thought, to allow people to kind of swallow it a little bit easier. And also, from the beginning of my life, I've had strange experiences, very DMT-like experiences without ever touching psychedelics. And each one of those experiences, they're completely overwhelming, beautiful, sometimes frightening, but they all seem to have a similar quality to them. And they kept leading me back, I think, to psychedelics and then ultimately DMT. And all these strange experiences that I had for 28 years prior, all of a sudden were completely justified, and they made 100% sense. And to me, when that happened in that moment, that's what said, okay, this is something that really has the possibility to benefit the world, because I saw it with myself, and having all those experiences justified, it just kind of set everything up that this was not.